I have been stuck on an image all week. It is a tractor in a field, but the weird part is what is missing.
There is no one in the cab.
Right, this huge green machine is moving through a field with cameras, GPS, software, and all this sensing gear. And the human being is not sitting in the seat doing the work. The human is supervising the system.
Which is a strange place for this company to end up, if you only know the logo and the tractor.
Exactly. Because the company is not Apple. It is not Microsoft. It is not NVIDIA. It is John Deere. It starts as a blacksmith shop in an Illinois village with, depending on which version of the story you grew up with, a broken saw blade and a farmer who cannot get his plow through prairie soil.
And the reason I like starting with the empty cab is that it makes the old story feel less old. Deere has always been a control story. The question is, what layer of the farmer's day does the company control?
In 1837, the layer is friction, literally dirt sticking to iron.
Yes. Picture the Illinois prairie before it becomes the postcard version of Midwestern abundance. The soil is black, deep, full of roots and sticky. Farmers bring cast iron plows from New England, and those plows were made for a different world. They cut into lighter eastern soil. In Illinois, the earth clings to the moldboard.
So you are walking behind a team trying to open a field, and every few yards, the whole machine stops being a machine?
Exactly. You stop the team. You scrape the soil off the plow. You reset. You start again. Then the same thing happens a few yards later. The best farmland in America is right in front of you, but the tool cannot move through it.
That is such a good first principles problem. The constraint is not demand. The constraint is not whether people want farms. The constraint is that the operating tool cannot complete the job without constant human interruption.
And John Deere's first move is not the clean museum version of invention. He does not wake up one morning and invent steel. He is not even the first person to put steel on a plow. The real thing is more specific. He makes a smoother working surface and a better curve, so the soil rolls off instead of sticking.
Self-scouring?
Self-scouring. One farmer tries it. The neighbors watch it work. Then they want their own. No patent. No brand campaign. No dealer conference. A plow goes into a field. The farmer stops stopping, and the field sells the product.
Which is why the modern version is so interesting. In 2026, the sticky soil is not the only thing being removed from the workday.
Right. The bottleneck changes. It becomes distribution, then horsepower, then hydraulics, then fuel efficiency, then uptime, then the farmer's time, then labor, then chemical use, then decisions.
And the company keeps moving up the stack. First, Deere controls how the blade meets the soil. Then, how the machine reaches the farm. Then, how the tractor pulls the implement. Then, how the dealer keeps it running. Then, how software tells the machine what to do.
That is the arc. The company that begins by making soil slide off a plow now wants the farm to coordinate itself. Satellite guidance, machine telemetry, computer vision sprayers, autonomous tractors, and a fight over who gets to open the software inside the machine when it breaks.
Same customer, totally different control point.
Same customer, same season pressure, same fear of downtime. Different layer of control.
So the question for this episode is not just how did a blacksmith shop become a tractor company?
It is bigger than that. How did a company built on one physical tool earn enough trust, distribution, and installed base to become the operating system for large-scale farming?
And the answer does not start with a founder walking calmly toward the opportunity.
No, it starts with debt, 2 fires, a court summons, and a pregnant wife left behind in Vermont.
That is not the company-approved postcard.
It is the human version, and if we are going to understand Deere, this is where we have to start. Welcome to the story of Deere, the company about great products, hard seasons, and the playbooks behind one of the most durable industrial businesses in America.
And we are starting before there is a company.
We have to. The first Deere story is not a plow story. It is a family story, and it begins with a man who leaves home and never comes back.
This is John Deere's father.
William Reynold Deere. He is a Welsh immigrant, a tailor in Rutland, Vermont. In 1808, when John is 4 years old, William sails from Boston to England to try to collect a family inheritance. Before he leaves, he writes home that he is waiting for the first fair wind.
That phrase is brutal once you know what happens.
It is. The wind comes. The ship leaves. William Deere disappears at sea. Sarah Deere is left with 6 children and no inheritance. So John grows up in a house where craft labor is survival. No cushion, no backup plan. If the work stops, the household is in trouble.
Which is useful context because the later company mythology can make him feel inevitable. Like, of course, the founder of John Deere becomes John Deere.
Nothing about it is inevitable. At 17, John is apprenticed to a blacksmith in Middlebury. 4 years of forge work, $30 to $40 a year, plus room and board. It is not glamorous. It is heat, metal, horses, wagons, hinges, repairs, and learning how objects fail under use.
That is the first real skill. Not invention in the abstract, repair.
Yes. He finishes the apprenticeship in 1825, marries Demarius Lamb in 1827, and opens his own shop. For a moment, this is a perfectly respectable local path. Small-town blacksmith, wife, children, customers, the usual flow of rural work.
And the shop burns.
The first shop burns in 1829. He rebuilds on borrowed money. The second shop burns in 1832.
2 fires in 3 years changes the whole tone. That is not just bad luck, that is debt.
Exactly. And blacksmithing is not a cash business in the way we might imagine. Customers owe John. John owes suppliers and lenders. The money is always moving late. By 1836, the pressure is not theoretical. Lester issues a summons over an unpaid note, $78.76.
Which sounds small until you remember what he earns as an apprentice.
Right. And debt has teeth in that world. Debtor's prison is still close enough to be a real fear, so John sells his shop for $200, leaves what he can with Demarius, and goes west.
How much cash does he have when he reaches Illinois?
The number that shows up in the histories is $73.73.
So he sells the shop for $200, leaves his pregnant wife with children and debts, and walks into Illinois with $73.
And I want to sit with that for a second because this is where the sanitized founding story does damage. The easy version is John Deere went west to seek opportunity. That is not false, but it removes the pressure. He is 32. His shops have burned. His creditors are coming. His wife is pregnant. He is not strolling into destiny. He is making a desperate move with almost no room for another mistake.
It also changes how you hear the later company culture. This is not a founder who starts with capital abundance. This is a founder who learns that if the season turns against you and the cash does not come in, the whole life can collapse.
That is the founding frame. Demarius is 8 months pregnant. There are already 4 children in the house. The 5th child, Charles Henry Deere, will be born in Vermont after John leaves. And Charles is the person who will eventually make the company.
So the kid who saves the company later is born while the founder is gone.
Yes. Keep that in your head. John arrives in Grand Detour, Illinois in late 1836. The town is tiny, founded only a few years earlier by Leonard Andrus, another Vermonter. It sits inside a bend in the Rock River. There is a sawmill, a flour mill, farms being cut out of the prairie, and no resident blacksmith.
That is the first favorable thing that happens to him.
It is. He is not arriving into a city. He is arriving into a shortage. Within 48 hours, the forge is lit.
That part feels very real. If you are a frontier village and a blacksmith shows up, you do not ask for a pitch deck. You ask him to fix the thing that broke yesterday.
Exactly. Horses need shoeing, wagons need repair, mills need parts. Farm tools fail. Deere can make himself useful immediately. But very quickly, one problem keeps coming back through the shop.
The plow problem.
The plows. And it is worth slowing down here because this is the actual product insight. Farmers are not asking for a brand. They are trying to break prairie. The soil in Illinois is not like Vermont soil. It is dark, dense, sticky, held together by root systems from native grass. Cast iron plows from the east are rougher, heavier, and shaped for a different kind of earth.
The imported tool is not matched to the local job.
That is the whole problem. The cast iron moldboard cuts in, but the soil clings to it. The farmer has to stop, scrape the face clean, get the team moving again, and then repeat the process. It is hard to overstate how maddening that would be. Farming is already a race against weather, daylight, animal strength, and your own body. Now the tool itself is constantly breaking the rhythm.
And this is not a small annoyance. If you are opening prairie, the plow is the machine that turns land into a farm. If the plow fails, the land is still potential energy. You can own it, you can see it, you can imagine the crop, but you cannot actually get the acre into production.
Right. The prairie is valuable because it can grow extraordinary crops. But before it can do that, somebody has to cut through sod that has been forming for centuries. The roots are matted, the soil is heavy, the animals are working, the farmer is walking, and the whole operation depends on the surface of the plow not becoming a ball of mud and grass.
So when we say self-scouring, it sounds like a feature. In the farmer's body, it is more like changing the job from stop, start to continuous motion. I love that because it makes the invention less mystical. Deere is not solving agriculture. He is solving the interruption.
The interruption, the stop, the scrape, the wasted motion.
That brings us to the famous broken saw blade.
Yes, but we should be careful with it. The museum wall version is a little too clean. The blade was probably not the big circular saw blade people picture. The better technical reading is that it was a long, reciprocating moulé saw blade from the mill. And the first successful Deere plow was not all steel. The moldboard was wrought iron. The cutting share was steel.
So the cold open myth is true in spirit, but wrong in the details.
That is the right way to say it. Deere was also not the first person to put steel on a plow. John Lane had used steel strips on a plow several years earlier. Deere's contribution is narrower and, I think, more impressive. He creates a smooth working surface and a curve that makes the soil turn and slide away.
Which is the self-scouring part.
Yes, self-scouring is not a marketing word at first. It is the farmer's lived experience. The plow clears itself, you can keep moving.
That is the moment where I want to put a marker down for the whole episode. Deere wins when it removes an interruption from the farmer's day.
That is exactly the pattern. And the first proof is not a press release, it is a neighbor watching a neighbor. Lewis Crandall tests one of Deere's plows. It works. 2 neighbors order their own. Deere makes 3 plows in 1838, 10 in 1839, 40 in 1840, 75 in 1841, 100 in 1842, 400 in 1843, about 1,000 by 1846.
That curve is tiny by modern venture standards, but in a frontier shop, it is explosive.
It is explosive because each plow is physical proof. There is no patent on the 1837 plow. There is no national sales force. For a long time, there is barely a factory. The product is dragged through a field in front of the exact customer who needs it.
The product is the salesman.
The field is the showroom.
And the demo is not. Let me tell you about our new feature. The demo is watch me not stop.
Yes, watch the soil come off. Watch the team keep moving. Watch an acre become possible.
This is the first Deere flywheel. Better plow, better field demo, more orders, more production learning, better plow. And because the whole thing is local, the feedback cycle is immediate. If the curve is wrong, the farmer tells the blacksmith.
There is another important thing inside that curve. Deere does not protect the original plow with a patent moat. He keeps making them, improving them, and getting them into fields. In a world where a farmer can see the work with his own eyes, trust compounds faster than legal protection.
That is so different from a lot of invention stories. The defensibility is not, I have a document from the patent office. It is, I have a better tool, I am closer to the customer, and I am learning every season.
And because the product is a working object, reputation is brutally honest. If it does not scour, everyone knows. If the share breaks, everyone knows. If the blacksmith refuses to fix it, everyone knows. Frontier markets are small enough that quality travels by gossip.
Which is why the John Deere name starts to matter before there's a giant company behind it. The name is a promise attached to an object farmers can test.
Which matters because the first version is not the end state. Deere keeps changing shape, polish, material, and process. In 1843, he formalizes the business with Leonard Andrus. They are now partners in blacksmithing and plowmaking. 10 employees, roughly 400 plows that year, a water-powered factory along the Rock River.
So the one-man forge story is over by the early 1840s.
It is. And in 1846, the material story changes too. Pittsburgh cast steel arrives in volume. Now Deere has more reliable steel supply, not just improvised pieces from saw blades or imported sheets. Output roughly doubles.
So, the saw blade is the origin image, but the company needs an industrial supply chain almost immediately.
Right. The myth is one broken piece of steel. The business is repeatable steel supply, labor, water power, customers, credit, and shipping.
And the family catches up to the business.
In 1838, Demarius comes west with the children. This is the scene I wish we had letters for because the facts are stark. John left when she was pregnant. Charles Henry Deere was born in Vermont after John went west. When the family arrives in Grand Detour, John meets this child for the first time.
That has to change how we hear the whole founder story.
It does. The household is reunited, but the company is already built on absence, debt, and a wife holding the family together while the founder tries to outrun failure.
And Charles is not just a genealogy note, he is the operator in waiting.
Exactly. John creates the product, Charles will create the company, but before that can happen, John has to outgrow Grand Detour.
This is the railroad fight.
Yes. Grand Detour proves the product, but it is a bad place to scale. Deere's partner, Leonard Andrus, is tied to the town. Deere wants the railroad routed through Grand Detour. Andrus opposes it. Deere also becomes uncomfortable with the books and the partnership mechanics.
So the argument is partly personal and partly geographic.
Exactly. And the geography is destiny. Grand Detour is a bend in the river. It has charm, it has water, it has the origin story. But Deere is starting to understand that a plow company is also a transportation company. If you cannot move steel in and finished plows out, you cannot serve the prairie at scale.
This is a very modern founder mistake to avoid. The place that gives birth to the product is not always the place that can scale the business.
In 1848, Deere moves about 70 miles south to Moline, Illinois, at the confluence of the Rock and Mississippi rivers. Moline has water power, coal, steamboat access, and, crucially, the coming railroad path. Grand Detour had let him find the product. Moline can turn that product into a company.
And the railroad does bypass Grand Detour later.
It does. Which makes Deere's move look very clear in retrospect. In the moment, it is a break with the town, the partner, and the origin story. But it is the first big strategic decision after the plow.
The Moline move is also a reminder that sometimes the second founding is geographic. Same product, same founder, different node on the map, totally different ceiling.
Yes. Moline gives Deere multiple forms of movement. Coal comes in, steel comes in. Finished plows can go out by river and soon by rail. St. Louis, New Orleans, Chicago, the Mississippi watershed, the prairie towns opening to the west, all of that becomes more reachable from Moline than from a village bend in the Rock River.
So we should not hear moves to Moline as a biographical detail. It is a capacity decision.
Exactly. And because Deere has already proven demand, capacity becomes destiny. If he had stayed in Grand Detour, maybe he remains a respected regional plowmaker. In Moline, the same product can ride the transportation map of the American Midwest.
Let me reground where we are. We started with a fleeing Vermont blacksmith, then a self-scouring plow, then farmer-to-farmer demos. Now the constraint has changed. The question is no longer, does the product work? The question is, can the company make and move enough of it?
That is exactly right. In Moline, Deere partners with Robert Tate. John Gould joins as bookkeeper. The operation starts to look like a factory. Within the first 6 months of 1849, production is roughly 200 plows a month. The building needs another story. By 1855, Deere is making about 10,000 plows a year.
From $73 in his pocket to 10,000 plows a year in less than 20 years.
And now the son enters the company. Charles Deere, 16 years old, joins as bookkeeper in 1853. He has been to commercial college in Chicago. He is not a blacksmith. He is not the product inventor. He is going to be finance, sales, and control.
Which means he is exactly the person the business will need when the cycle turns.
The cycle turns in 1857. The panic hits, credit freezes, farmers stop paying. The company is exposed because it is sold into a rural credit system where receivables are real, but cash is late.
Which is a terrifying place to be if you are a manufacturer. Your customers have your plows, you have their promises. Your creditors want money.
Yes, and this is where the Demarius plant pays off. Charles is 21 years old. He walks into the bank of John Gould, his father's former partner, and pledges receivables as collateral. Gould says yes, the company survives.
This is the kid Demarius gave birth to alone in Vermont.
Exactly. This is the son John had not met when he was born, and by his early 20s, Charles is effectively running the business that his father started.
That really is a second founding?
It is. John remains the founder, designer, civic figure, and brand presence. Charles becomes the operator. In 1863, Stephen Velli, John's son-in-law, joins the partnership. In 1868, Deere and Company is incorporated in Illinois with $250,000 of capital stock. John owns the majority, but the center of gravity has shifted.
From founder craft to family-operated enterprise.
Yes, and Charles's signature move is not a plow. It is distribution.
This is the branch house system, and I think this might be the most underappreciated part of early Deere.
Kansas City, 1869. Charles opens Deere, Manser and Company. It is a Deere-owned regional branch house. Not just a dealer, not just a warehouse. It sits between Moline and the local dealer network.
Here is why that matters. A local dealer is close to the farmer, but small. The factory is powerful, but far away. The branch house is the middle layer. It holds inventory. It supports local dealers. It has parts. It handles credit and collections. It hears what is selling and what is failing. Then it sends that intelligence back to Moline.
And it solves a very practical problem. A farmer does not buy a plow the way a city customer buys a finished consumer good. The farmer buys into a season. The implement has to arrive before the work window. It has to fit the soil, crop, and animals. If something breaks, the replacement part has to be close enough to matter.
The branch house makes Deere feel local without forcing Moline to be everywhere. That is the architecture. Central factory, regional branch, local dealer, farm customer. Each layer has a job.
Before this, a lot of implement distribution runs through commission agents. They may sell whatever they can sell. They do not necessarily carry inventory. They do not necessarily feed information back to the factory. They do not necessarily build a long relationship with the farmer.
Charles is replacing a loose selling channel with a controlled learning channel. That is a very big difference.
And Charles keeps adding them. St. Louis, Minneapolis, Council Bluffs, San Francisco, eventually Winnipeg. Different regions, different crops, different soil, different seasons, different parts demand.
This is where the modern Deere moat starts. Not in the paint matters later. But the deeper asset is, can you be present before planting, during harvest, and when something breaks?
Because if the machine breaks during the season, the farmer does not have a theoretical problem.
He has a clock problem. Weather is moving, the crop is moving, labor is scarce. If your machine is down, your year is at risk. So the company that can get you the part, the repair knowledge, and the replacement implement fast earns a kind of trust that a catalog cannot earn.
And Charles sees this earlier than almost anyone in the industry.
It is also a feedback system. If Kansas farmers are breaking apart in the same way, Moline hears it. If Minnesota farmers want a different implement mix, Moline hears it. Deere is not just selling through the branches. Deere is learning through the branches.
Which changes the product line. The company adds riding plows, cultivators, planters, and eventually hundreds of variants. The plow trade remains the center, but the organization is learning how to carry more than one product.
This is the first version of the full line question. You cannot sell a full line unless the distribution system can support a full line.
John Deere, meanwhile, becomes more of a civic figure in Moline. He helps found a bank. He becomes mayor in the 1870s. He works on roads, sidewalks, sewers, fire protection. He is no longer the young blacksmith at the forge.
That transition feels important. He is becoming the symbol, while Charles is becoming the company.
John dies in 1886, age 82. More than 4,000 people reportedly attend the funeral in a town of roughly 12,000. Charles becomes formal president, but in practical terms, he has been running Deere for almost 3 decades.
That is a succession that actually works.
It is rare, and it works partly because John and Charles are not trying to be the same person. John is the craftsman founder, the civic elder, the man whose name sits on the tool. Charles is the commercial architect. He is comfortable with inventory, branches, credit, and product breadth.
That split is healthy. A lot of family companies fail because the second generation performs the founder instead of doing the job the company now needs.
Charles does the job the company needs. By the time he is in his final years, Deere has a huge plow business, a much broader implement catalog, and a distribution machine that competitors envy. But the world changes around him.
International Harvester?
In 1902, J.P. Morgan combines McCormick, Deering, and several others into International Harvester. Overnight, Deere is facing an industrial colossus. IHC is doing something like $110 million of annual revenue. Deere is around $3 million.
That is not a competitor. That is a different weight class.
Completely different. And IHC owns harvesters, binders, threshers, and the larger grain chain. Deere's great focus on the plow trade had been a wedge. Now it starts to look like a cage.
That is such a painful strategic turn. The thing that made you focused can become the thing that makes you narrow.
Charles had a line that his first duty was to the plow trade. It made sense for decades. But after IHC forms, the market is moving toward full-line equipment companies. Farmers do not just need plows, they need machines across the season.
And the farmer's trust is still there, the branches are there, the brand is there, but the product line has to catch up to the channel.
The IHC formation also changes the psychology of the industry. Before 1902, Deere can look like one of the great houses of farm implements. After 1902, it is suddenly a specialist surrounded by a giant. The question is no longer, can Deere keep making better plows? The question is, can Deere remain relevant when the customer wants a whole equipment relationship?
This is where distribution cuts both ways. The branch houses are an advantage because they can carry more categories, but they also make the gap more visible. If your dealer has the farmer's trust and the farmer asks for a machine you do not make, you feel that missing product every season.
Exactly. And IHC gives Deere a map of what full line could mean. Not because Deere wants to copy IHC completely, but because the merged company proves that the future farmer relationship may be broader than plows and cultivators. Charles dies in 1907. William Butterworth takes over. He is Charles's son-in-law, an Ohio-born, Lehigh-trained lawyer who joined the company through the family and rose through purchasing and treasury.
A lawyer inheriting an industrial knife fight.
Exactly. He inherits the branch system, the plow legacy, the pressure from IHC, and a market that is about to ask the question he least wants to answer.
The tractor question.
Yes. Deere spends the 1910s trying to become a fuller line company. It acquires Dawn Manufacturing for hay equipment, Syracuse for chilled plows, Van Brunt for seeders, and other implement makers. But power is different. A tractor is not just another implement. It threatens to reorganize the entire farm around a new source of force.
Which means Deere has a scary choice. Either attach your implements to somebody else's tractor or become a tractor company yourself.
And tractors at this point are not obviously pleasant machines. They are loud, dangerous, heavy, expensive, and still proving where they fit. Horses are not obsolete in 1912. Many farmers still trust animal power because they understand it, can feed it, and can repair the equipment around it.
That is important because we can look backward and say, obviously, tractors win. But if you are Butterworth in that moment, tractors look like a capital-intensive distraction from a profitable implement company.
Exactly. A plow company can make tools that farmers already know how to use. A tractor company has to build engines, transmissions, dealer training, parts flows, and a new category of trust. If the tractor fails in the field, the farmer may not be able to fix it with the old blacksmith logic.
So, Butterworth's caution is not stupidity, it is rational, until the market clock starts moving faster than his caution.
And the market clock is moving because tractors change the meaning of every implement behind them. Once power shifts from animal teams to engines, the implement maker cannot stay neutral forever. The hitch, the speed, the weight, the width, the field pattern, all of it starts to change around the tractor.
Which means the worst position is not necessarily being late to tractors. The worst position is becoming dependent on someone else's tractor to define the future of your own implements.
That is the trap. If Ford or IHC owns the power unit, they increasingly shape the attachments, the dealer conversation, and the farmer's equipment budget. Deere's plows could become accessories to another company's center of gravity, and Butterworth does not want to become a tractor company. Deere experiments anyway. There is the Melvin tractor around 1912, a one-off prototype. Then the more serious Dane all-wheel drive program. Joseph Dane is asked to build a small tractor. By 1915, there is a prototype. By 1916, some field tests look very promising.
But internally, this is not clean alignment.
Not at all. Butterworth tells bankers, in substance, that Deere is not in the tractor business and is not going into it.
That quote is the whole act.
It is, because the board keeps pushing. In November 1917, the executive committee authorizes 100 Dane tractors for sale in 1918.
Then the human event happens.
Joseph Danefield tests the tractor in the rain, catches pneumonia, and dies on Halloween 1917.
So the internal champion disappears right as the board is trying to force this machine into production.
Exactly. And the economics are bad. The target retail price had been around $700. The production cost is closer to $1,700. The Dane is advanced, but it is too expensive.
Meanwhile, the Waterloo boy is already in the field at around $850.
The Waterloo Gasoline Engine Company has a working tractor, farmers know it, and the company is close enough geographically and strategically to solve Deere's time problem.
That is the key phrase, time problem. Building a tractor from scratch in 1918 is a 5-year project. Buying a tractor company is a 5-month project. And Deere does not have 5 years. Fordson is coming. IHC is moving. The market is not going to wait for Deere to get comfortable.
The Waterloo story also gives Deere something the Dane program cannot manufacture quickly: evidence in the field. Farmers have seen the Waterloo boy. Dealers understand it. The machine has a reputation that is separate from Deere's internal hopes.
And reputation is the theme again. The first plow grows because a farmer sees another farmer keep moving. The tractor acquisition works because Deere can buy a machine that farmers have already accepted enough to take seriously.
That is a really nice rhyme. The company begins with field proof, and when it faces the tractor age, it buys field proof. So on March 14, 1918, Deere buys the Waterloo Gasoline Engine Company. The base purchase is often given as $2.1 million. The all-in number, including broker fees and related payments, is usually given as $2.35 million.
Worth calling out because the sources differ, but the strategic point is the same. It is the largest check in company history for the future Butterworth had just said Deere was not entering.
What Deere gets is the Waterloo factory, engineers, the Waterloo boy tractor, and an immediate claim to being a tractor maker.
And what happens to the Dane?
It is effectively killed. About 100 are built. The company later almost acts like it never happened. Waterloo becomes the path.
So, the plow company gets into tractors not through a clean internal master plan, but through pressure, board politics, a failed cost curve, a founder's death inside the program, and an acquisition.
And that is a very Deere way for the future to arrive. Not as a slogan, not as a clean break from the past. It arrives because the old constraint changes, and the company has to decide whether to defend the old identity or follow the farmer's work into the next machine.
Which is exactly why the Waterloo deal has to end Act 1. It is not just a product expansion, it is the moment Deere chooses integration. From here on, the company is not merely selling the thing that goes into the soil. It is selling the power source, the implement, the dealer support, the parts, the financing, and eventually the data layer around the job.
The arc from the plow to the operating system begins here, with a reluctant check, which is why this is the act break. 18 months after Butterworth tells bankers Deere is not in the tractor business, he signs the largest check in company history for a tractor company.
The thing he resisted becomes the thing that saves the next century.
Exactly. The plow company is not gone. But after Waterloo, the plow is no longer enough. The next act starts with Deere trying to survive in a tractor market it did not want to enter, against Ford, IHC, and a farm economy that is about to collapse.